I lead the prayers, but I thought it'd be good to have both. I'm just the regular prayers. Yeah. Okay, turn to page 7, please, of the prayer book. In the Buddha's Dharma and Sangha, until enlightened I seek refuge, through merit from giving and the rest. To aid all may I become Buddha. In the Buddha's Dharma and Sangha, until enlightened I seek refuge, through merit from giving and the rest. To aid all may I become Buddha. In the Buddha's Dharma and Sangha, until enlightened I seek refuge, through merit from giving and the rest. To aid all may I become Buddha. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be parted from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from bias, attachment, and hatred. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subduer of the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subduer of the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subduer of the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who wise then I prostrate, with pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one gone to thusness I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you the sublime community intending virtue I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all 3 ever devout homage. To all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms, atoms in all aspects, with supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is a teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, the flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings, a of all seeing, subdue the foe of faults and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. From Tushita's hundreds of gods protect his heart to tip of this fresh, pure, white, deep cut like cloud. O Lobsang Drapa, Dharma's omniscient king, pray come to this place with your disciples. In space ahead on lion throne, lotus and moon, Venerable Guru, smile brightly with delight. Pray stay hundreds of eons to spread doctrine. As supreme merit, feel for my mind of faith. Your wisdom mind sees full range of knowables. Your eloquent speech adorns fortunaties. Your beauteous body, fame, glory, outstanding. Homage to you, worthwhile to think of, hear and see. Pleasant offerings of water, various flowers, fragrant incense, light perfume, and so on. Oceans of offerings set out and envisioned, offered up to you, supreme field of merit. Non-virtue committed with body, speech, and mind, which I have heaped up since beginningless time, especially what has contradicted three vows. Each I confess from my heart with strong regret. In time of strife you strove to learn and practice, shunned eight mundane concerns, made life essence full. O protector from depths of our hearts, we rejoice in your powerful great deeds. Venerable Gurus from love and wisdom, clouds densely massed in your Dharmakaya sky, pray loose a rain of vast profound Dharma on fields of disciples just as needed. May whatever virtue that I've here gathered bring benefit to all beings and doctrine, and may it make Venerable Lobsang Dragpa's essential teaching specially shine forever. Mig say wait chen chen rezik, dream campe wang po jam palyang, tu pung malu jam se sang weda, gang chen ke pe tsu gyan song kapa, Lobsang Drag pe shabla so wade. homage to the exalted three jewels. Thus have I heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgiri on Baltar mountain, together with a great assembly of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of the countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. At that very time, the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, was looking perfectly at the practice of profound perfection of wisdom, perfectly looking at the emptiness of inherent existence of the five aggregates also. And through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, how should a child of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, replied to the Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whichever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom, should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly at the emptiness of inherent existence of the five aggregates also. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, form is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are empty, without characteristics. That is, they are not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement and no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visible form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no object of touch, no mental phenomena. There is no eye element and so forth up to no mind element, up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no cessation of ignorance and so forth up to no aging and death and no cessation of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, no origin, no cessation, and no path, no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. And because their minds have no obstructions, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond error, they attain the final state beyond sorrow. All the Buddhas who reside in the three times, by relying upon the perfection of wisdom, become manifest and complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, equal to the unequaled mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it is not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Tayata gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisoha. Shariputra, this is how Bodhisattva, a great being, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, well said, O child of the lineage, so it is. The profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced exactly as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, and the entire assembly as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, Gandharvas, and others, were filled with admiration and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. In the holy supreme abode of the Dakinis, possessed of clairvoyance and miraculous power, unwaveringly caring for practitioners as your children, homage to the host of the three places Dakinis. Akasamaraja Sodara Samripa. Akasamaraja Sadara Samarayepe. Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. The power of truth of the exalted three jewels speech, may all on the side of negativity, such as the four maras, be stopped. May they become non-existent. May they be pacified. All enemies, obstructors, and hindrances, Shanti Kuriya Soha. The 80,000 types of obstructors pacified, freed from adverse harmful conditions. May all be conducive in perfect auspiciousness, bring happiness and well-being here, right now. Sajini Paki Jukshing Meto Dramri Rablinji Nide Gyan Bari Sa Sangit chodan choke chonam la janchu badu dagni kyap suchi dagi chunyin ki pe sonam ki drola penche sangit rupa shok Sangit chodan choke chonam la janchu badu dagni kyap suchi dagi chunyin ki pe sonam ki drola penche sangit rupa shok Sangye chodan choki chonam la janchu badu dagni kyap suchi dagi chunyen gi pe sonam ki rola penche sangye drupa sho.
So let's just take a few minutes to meditate on our breath. So I'm sure you all know how to do this. So sit in your best, most comfortable meditation posture. And bring your mind inside, away from external distractions, and mainly objects of the five senses. The five physical senses, and also you have to try to keep your mind away from internal distractions, distractions of the sixth sense, mental sense, mainly the discursive, chattering mind. So find your breath where it goes out and comes in through your nostrils, and focus all your attention at the entrance of your nostrils. Just where you can gently detect the subtle coming and going of your breath. So with a strong determination to focus on your breath at that point without becoming distracted, try as best you can to do that. So think. Since beginning this time, I've been circling through the 6 realms of cyclic existence, being born, dying, being reborn, dying, over and over again, since time without beginning. And mostly in the 3 lower realms. And this time, I've been born not just in the upper realms of cyclic existence, but in the human realm. And not just as an ordinary human being, but I've received the perfect human rebirth that has 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses. So in most of my previous lives, I was born in the hell realms, the realm of greatest suffering, which is mainly caused by anger, which is very powerful negative karma, and causes the worst suffering rebirth. But this time I'm free from that. So I have the freedom to study and practice the Dharma. And then most times when I wasn't born in the hell realms, I was born as one of those suffering, hungry ghosts. Suffering from hunger and thirst and all other kinds of deprivations. Never a moment to rest, impossible to meditate. But this time, I'm free from that. And I have this chance to study and practice the Dharma. And then most times when I wasn't born in the hells or as a hungry ghost, I was born in the animal realm, which had unbearable suffering. And again, there's no freedom to practice Dharma. So this time, again, I'm free from that. And then even when I wasn't born in the lower realms and was born in the upper realms, more times than not I was born as one of the long-life gods, sort of intoxicated by celestial pleasure with no interest in practicing Dharma. So again, this time I have a perfect human rebirth and I'm free from that. I have every opportunity to practice Dharma. And then even when I wasn't born in the lower realms or as a long-life god, and I was born human, I was born at a time where the Buddha hadn't manifested. So it was a dark period. There were no teachings, there was no light of Dharma. So of course impossible to study and practice. And then even when I was born human, at a time after the Buddha had appeared, I was born in a place where there were no Dharma teachings. So again, I had no opportunity to study and practice Dharma. But this time, how fortunate I am. I'm free from that unfortunate state. And even many times when I was born at a time after the Buddha had descended and in a place where the teachings existed, I was physically or mentally handicapped, so I was unable to study and practice. And even many times when I was born at a time when the Buddha descended in a place where the teachings existed, with physical and mental senses intact, I had strong, fixed, wrong views. You know, firmly believing there were no past and future lives. There was no karma. No three jewels of refuge. No Four Noble Truths. You know, with strong views opposite to those of the teachings. So again, no freedom to practice Dharma. So with this perfect human rebirth, I've received these 8 freedoms, freedom from those unfree states, those states where it's not possible to study and practice the Dharma, so how fortunate I am. So try to feel our great fortune. Just try to think of the vast expanses of time when there are no Dharma teachings. The vast expanses of space where there are no Dharma teachings. Even just on this earth. So, you know, it's almost the impossible thing that's happened. So 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses. So I won't mention the richnesses, but we have those also. So with this perfect human rebirth, you know, we can achieve temporal benefit, we can achieve ultimate benefit, and we can make every moment of this perfect human rebirth, every split second, we can make a giant stride towards enlightenment. So think, you know, the purpose of my life is to free all sentient beings from suffering and lead them to enlightenment. And with this life I can do that by following the graduated path to enlightenment. So I've received this perfect human rebirth. But it won't last long. Just like everybody else, I have to die. And just like everybody else, I have no idea when my life will come to an end. And if it ends before I've had a chance to practice, to purify, I'll again be reborn in the lower realms, from which it's extremely difficult to escape. So I mustn't put off the practice of Dharma. I must practice Dharma and only Dharma from this moment on. because that's the only thing that helps at the time of death. So there are 3 levels of motivation with which I can practice Dharma. I can practice simply to avoid rebirth in the lower realms. I can practice to free myself from cyclic existence. Or I can practice in order to reach enlightenment for the sole purpose of enlightening, freeing all sentient beings, which is the purpose of my life. Which is why my previous lives, many previous lives, practiced Dharma hard and made pure prayers that I would receive this perfect human rebirth in order to continue the practice that I did then. So that's our personal history. That's why we're here in this centre at this moment. Because this is what we strove for and prayed for in previous lives. So all that, whatever we've tried to practice now, we know how hard it is, so we can understand how hard our previous lives practiced and wanted us to be here now. So we mustn't squander all that effort that we ourselves made in our previous lives. So with everything we do, we should motivate to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, and especially when we come to a class at the centre. So briefly, just think the reason I'm here tonight, think to yourself, is to study Dharma in order to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. To free all sentient beings from suffering. Okay, thank you. So, we can read books or we can listen to teachings and things, but in order to really practice, to know how to practice and to practice properly, we need a teacher. Anybody think we don't?
What was the question? What did you just say?
Who doesn't think we need a teacher? You think we don't need a teacher?
I think we need one.
You do? Okay. Well, I'm not it, by the way. I'm just filling in for a few minutes. Yes, so Geshe-la is on a mission, doing that rare thing, teaching Dharma to Tibetans, isn't he? It's children or teenagers?
18 to 25 years old.
18 to 25. Is he in Garrison?
Yes.
Yeah, if you see Geshe-la's Facebook page, you'll see him in full flight. So therefore, Sean, the Centre Director, asked, because we have some amazing teachers coming in the next couple of months. Next couple of months. Sure thought it'd be good if we were really clear about the importance of the teacher and who these lamas are, and why would be a great loss if we didn't take advantage of their visit here to the centre. I think I think these days people are a little blasé about Dharma centres. They seem to be everywhere, and there are so many books and so many things you can listen to online, and if you have sort of some kind of exposure, you kind of have this impression that Dharma's everywhere. It's really easy, but it's not actually. It's not easy at all. And a lot of people over the last few decades anyway have put a lot of effort into bringing the Dharma to the West. And especially with Tibetan Buddhism, which has many unique features when compared to other forms of Buddhism, it's a terribly unfortunate thing that happened that has benefited us. The Chinese, communist Chinese occupation of Tibet, which started pretty soon after Mao came to power in 1949 and gradually escalated over the next 10 years until March 1959, when it looked like there might be an effort by the Chinese occupiers in Tibet, in Lhasa, to capture or kidnap the Dalai Lama. So the Tibetans rose up against the Chinese, and of course they were brutally put down. The uprising was brutally put down, but it became the catalyst for over 100,000 Tibetans to leave Tibet around that time, including His Holiness the Dalai Lama and his tutors and many other lamas. And they went to India, Nepal, Bhutan, they went south and got out as quickly as they could, many of them. So as a result of that, we're here. So it's kind of the ultimate silver lining, really. So many of the lamas, many of the Tibetan lay people were put to work in India building roads and doing other manual labour, and many of the monks, the lamas from the great monasteries, they went to refugee camps. There was one famous one, I guess you'd say, called Buxa in West Bengal, where many monks finished up. It used to be a prison camp. It was run by the British to imprison Indian freedom fighters. Nehru was there and Gandhi was there different times. And there were other refugee camps. And then His Holiness was given the Dalai Lama was given some property, some buildings in Dharamsala in northeast India. and he and his tutors and some of his other teachers finished up there. And then after a while, the Indian government gave the Tibetans a lot of land in South India. So a lot of them left Buxa and the other camps, and they went to South India, and there they had to clear hundreds of acres of jungle, these monks, and clear the fields, and then they started rebuilding their monasteries. So that was like in the 60s. And, our previous resident teacher, Geshe Tenli's uncle, Geshe Tsulga, he was one of those monks who was in Buxa and went to South India and cleared land and helped rebuild their monastery, Sera Monastery. And the other two main Gelug monasteries in Lhasa, Ganden and Drepung were also rebuilt. So now, after 50 years, something, now some of those monasteries are bigger. They've got more monks than they did in Tibet, which is pretty amazing, really. But of course, the climate is so different, and in the early days a lot of monks died from heat and from disease, TB, and other diseases to which they'd never been exposed before. So it was a very difficult time, and they worked unbelievably hard to preserve their culture, and especially to preserve the Dharma, and to continue their studies, and many of them became Geshes in India. And the study and programs were re-established in exile in India. And now, there's very little in Tibet. They don't have many teachers. They have some monasteries, and you can go and visit them, and there are a few monks there, and but this level of study is pretty thin in most of them. So when I went into this in Nepal in 1972, it was really completely unknown to most of us, Tibetan Buddhism. But we had these lamas, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche were teaching in Kopan Monastery, just outside of Kathmandu, and they were teaching in English, which was very unusual at the time, so more and more people started going there and studying with them. And then once they made that connection with Tibetan Buddhism, of course a lot of people came and went, but those who kind of felt there was really something there and decided to find out more, it was an unbelievably fortunate time, even compared to now, because many of nearly all the great lamas who had escaped from Tibet were still alive and teaching. So not only did we meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama and get teachings from him, but his senior tutor, His Holiness Ling Rinpoche, and his junior tutor, His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche, who was the root guru of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and also many of the other lamas who were teaching Westerners, Geshe Dagri and Geshe Rapton, Geshe Zopa. They were all disciples of His Holiness, well, all those lamas, but especially His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche. And then there was Song Rinpoche and and Sekong Rinpoche and many of the great Geshes. And I mean, it was we sort of beginning Western Dharma students were much more fortunate than the Tibetans had even been in Tibet. You'd almost never get teaching. Regular Tibetans would never get to meet these lamas or let alone get teachings from them or initiations. But we could just breeze up and make an appointment and see them the next day and hang out and drink tea and so there were very few of the lamas who came from Tibet still alive. But of these great lamas, like His Eminence Ling Rinpoche and Trijang Rinpoche and Sekong Rinpoche and Song Rinpoche and some of the other great Geshes in our tradition, in Gelug tradition, they've reincarnated in India or in the West. Their incarnations have been recognized, and now they're beginning to teach. So one of the great teachers we have coming here in the beginning of September is Ling Rinpoche. Everybody knows this, right? So many of the lamas, like Lama Thupten Yashi and Thupten Zopa Rinpoche, and many of the Thuptens, they got their name Thupten from Ling Rinpoche, from the previous one. And in 1974, a bunch of 10 of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche students got ordained in Bodh Gaya, and we all became Thuptens. We were ordained by His Holiness Ling Rinpoche. So, and at the time he was the Ganden Tripa. He was the 97th Ganden Tripa. So Ganden Tripa means holder of the throne of Ganden, or the throne of Lama Tsongkhapa, the founder of our tradition, who who founded this tradition in the 14th century. So I don't know how long the Ganden Tripa holds the throne, and I'm not quite sure what number we're up to now. But Ling Rinpoche, so back in the 80s, he was the 97th. He's probably 105 or 106 now. So we had the last or the second last Ganden Tripa here when Geshe Tsulga was here. So he's the head of the Gelug tradition. Some people think the Dalai Lama is the head of the Gelug tradition, but actually it's the Ganden Tripa. So one thing Sean asked me to try and clarify was some terminology. So where do I start? Well, we're neither monks nor nuns. We're lay practitioners. So then if we decide to get ordained, then we become a monk or a nun. So then, keeping it simple, there are novice monks and nuns who take 36 vows in this tradition, and fully ordained monks who take 253 vows, fully ordained nuns who have 364. So those are monks and nuns. So they lead celibate lifestyle, apart from everything else. And most in Tibet, most of the monks and nuns lived in monasteries and they studied. And in Gelug monasteries, they studied mostly to become a Geshe, so like Geshe Tenle. So that's, depends who you are, I guess, but usually takes about 15, 20 years to do all the study and then pass the exams and become a Geshe. Then there are 4 levels of Geshe. So the highest is called Geshe-la. And typically, and this is what I saw in the monastery in Kopan when I got there in 72. There weren't that many monks, there were about 30, I think, 25 or 30. Now there are 400. And 400 monks and 400 nuns. And in those early days, the nuns didn't actually study to become Geshes, but now they're studying, and the first female Geshe is actually a German, and Geshe Kasang, Geshe Ma, and I think the first Tibetans now have passed their Geshe exam. I can't remember. Do you remember? Either they've just passed or they're about to become Geshes. So in Tibet, about 20% of the males were monks, were in monasteries. And the families often would put 1 or 2 sons in a monastery, and they go in when they were 5 or 6 or 7. And the first thing they're set to do is memorization. So they memorize very simple prayers, like the prayers we do at the beginning, stuff like that. And the prayers we did before, they memorize those. And then they memorize texts like the collected definitions. So they memorize texts that define the Dharma terms, like how many colours there are, how many types of smell, how many types of touch. So they, and then all the mental factors, the primary and secondary mind. So they memorize texts that give you a basic vocabulary for the study of Dharma. So whether they understand or not, they memorize the words. And then they move on to more complex tests. So this goes on for several years, and what it seemed to me, it's kind of like weightlifting for the mind. And so they have a memorization class where they're given a verse or a couple of verses of a particular text to memorize, these young kids. And if you can memorize it, the sooner you can memorize it and repeat it to the teacher without mistake, you're allowed to go out and hang out and play. So there's a lot of incentive to memorize it quickly and well. So that, and there's a room full, like this room, full of 30 kids, and they're all sitting facing the wall with their text, memorizing it, and they're doing it out loud, 30 of them. So it also develops your focus and concentration. And so they memorize a lot of texts, and they continue memorizing texts like their whole life, those who are good at it. and they memorize huge books of text. You see these texts here, you know, hundreds of pages. It's unbelievable. Back in 1977, we sort of established a small Western monastery as part of Kopan Monastery in Nepal. There were probably about 15 Western monks and nuns, 15 or 20 of us, I guess, 15 maybe. And there was a Geshe there, Geshe Jampagazzo, who finished up going to Italy, and he was Geshe at our centre in Italy, Lama Tsongkhapa Institute. And he was the first teacher of the Master's Program, which was a 7-year program devised by Lama Yeshe with Geshe Jampagazzo to condense the 20-year Geshe studies into a 7-year program that Westerners could study. So, and there were a bunch of people went through that first program in the late 90s, early 2000s. Don Hendrick was one. Did you contact Don? Did you?
No, I was just thinking about that.
So a lot of those first Master's Program graduates are teaching in FPMT centres in different places now. So Geshe Jampagazzo decided to teach us the Abhidhamma Kosha, which is text by Vasubandhu. And so part of the thing was we had to memorize in Tibetan, and of course most of us didn't speak Tibetan, so we didn't understand. So I think if you understand the meaning of the words, it's probably a little easier. But these kids didn't understand a lot of the words either. They could read and they could memorize, but it was their language. So I'm saying it was easier. Okay. I mean, it was agony. So there's these simple 4-line verses. I mean, it's like Lam Chungpa, yeah? Small path, you remember? Small path, Lam Chungpa, small path, Chandagapita. He was a monk, he was so dumb that when he memorized one syllable, I can't remember, I was just trying to remember the syllables. So if he memorized then when he tried to memorize hum, he'd remember hum, but he'd forget So it was a bit like that, you know, you memorize one verse and then you go on to the next one, and by the time you got that, you'd forgotten the first one. It's not the idea at all. Anyway, so for years they memorize these verses, these texts, and then they start getting teachings on explaining the meaning of the texts. So I was looking at these kids, they're 5, 6, 7, they're memorizing, you know, whatever. They're memorizing texts, explain the nature of reality and stuff like that. You know, I was memorizing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or something. And I mean, it's such a different education, you know. And I mean, and all the useless garbage that I learned as a kid and at school, and you know, we all know. So they memorize these texts, and then they start getting explanations on the meaning of these texts that they've memorized. So their knowledge becomes greater, and then to test their knowledge and to strengthen their knowledge, they debate. They do debate, which is part of the process of the monastic course of study. Part of the course of study. Debate. I need to study microphone placement. Become a Geshe in that. So Lama Rinpoche said debate is like a form of analytical meditation. So you know the two forms of meditation, everybody? Yes? Two forms of meditation? Jenny? Who knows? Yeah, so concentration or placement or placement meditation, concentration meditation, and analytical meditation. So, you know, focused meditation is what we try to do before meditating on the breath or different things, you know. And analytical meditation is where you think, you use your powers of logical deduction to analyze the teachings that you've heard to come to a determination whether they're true or false. Basically like that. So has anybody not seen the monks debating? You haven't? So it's kind of fairly formalized or ritualized. What am I doing wrong here? I should keep still. There's one, there are a lot of phrases, sort of the ritual phrases that they learn. They start at the beginning, and there's a monk sitting here, and then there's another monk standing up, firing questions, and then the other monks are sort of sitting alongside. Generally, everyone's attacking the guy sitting here, you know, and they'll say, they'll do the beginning bit, and then they'll say, well, you don't know what the definition of Dharma is. And he'll say, yes, I do. I say, well, what is the definition of Dharma? So the guy gives a definition, what he thinks the definition of Dharma is, and then the guy standing up will say, well, you said that, but what about this? And then he'll throw some out-of-context quote at him. And so this is where it starts to be important to know the text that you've memorized. And because if someone throws a quote at you from a Dharma text, which is correct, you have to know that, yeah, but that, Nagarjuna said that when he was talking about this, and this is irrelevant for this particular thing. So anyway, it goes on and on like that, So, but basically, the job is to get the person in the hot seat to contradict himself, or to get lost or confused, and then everybody packs up laughing and shouts at him, and the person's made to feel a bit of a dickhead, so that's the point. But it's all done in the spirit of love and compassion. And the idea of helping the person clarify his knowledge is supposed to be like that, but sometimes it's a bit more like a blood sport, I think, without actual blood. But they really get into it, and I never learned Tibetan, but it was, maybe if we have a bunch of Tibetan Lamas here, they should put on a demonstration. You can ask Geshe-la to demonstrate debate, and then Damcha can do the rapid translation. So that goes on like that for years. And in the monasteries in Tibet, I don't know how it is in India actually, but in Tibet so often they'd stay up all night debating, So every other night they'd stay up all night. And, and the monks were very poor, they had very little food and it was freezing cold, and they'd be out in the debate courtyard, which is out in the open. I mean, they were tough, and they worked really hard, And we couldn't do it. No way we could do it. But we're experiencing the fruits of all that, And we're pretty blasé about it, Maybe I'll go, maybe I won't, maybe I'll do something else instead. So anyway, so after this grueling 20 years of meditation, of memorization, and classes and debate and exams, then some of them pass their exams and become Geshis. So Geshe, literally, Gewashenyan means a virtuous friend. Geshe. Kalyana Mitra, I think, in Sanskrit. Virtuous friend. So it's a nice word, Geshe. It's a virtuous person who's your friend in Dharma, can help you with your study and practice. Geshe. So the Lama, so Geshis typically were monks, but these days a lot of the guys who were Geshis are disrobed, especially in the West, you know, or in India, I guess. And some people now, lay people, a few lay people, I'm not sure if any lay person actually has become a Geshe, but a lot of Westerners who became Geshe as monks have disrobed. A few, there aren't that many actually. So it's a monastic course of study. And some Geshis are Lamas, but not all Lamas are Geshis. So Lama is the Tibetan word for guru. So literally, Lama Zopa Rinpoche says literally Lama means heavy with Dharma knowledge. And it's not just book learning, it's knowledge gained through experience of studying and practicing and meditating on the Dharma. So in Tibet, a lot of, I think not so often in exile, but in Tibet, a lot of the Geshis, when they finish the Geshe, they go off to the mountains, to a cave to meditate. And that's where the memorization is coming really handy, because you carry the library with you in your mind, you know. You don't have to schlep all these texts up the mountain. You know, I think there weren't that many texts. Not every monk had his own private library, you know. So, so then they go off and meditate and try to gain experience and gain wisdom, sort of to experience the meaning of the words. And not just the, you know, conventional meaning, but the ultimate meaning, to attain realizations, to realize the meaning of the teachings. So, you know, realizations are actually where it's at, you know. So the path to enlightenment, we call the Lamrim, the stages of the path to enlightenment, is a series of realizations, hundreds, maybe thousands. You know, if you look at the outline of, say, a text like Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, which Geshe-la has been teaching for the last few years on Sunday mornings, if you look at the outline, you see the steps. Even within each outline, there are sub-outlines which aren't often indicated. So each point is a teaching, not just to be understood intellectually, but to be actualized or realized, to become an indestructible part of your mind. So an authentic Lamrim text, a text on the stages of the path to enlightenment, not only has to have all the steps from beginning to end, but has to have them in the right order, because that's how we practice attaining realizations, because it's set up in a very psychologically logical way, that one understanding leads to another. So there are, 3 levels of wisdom to be attained. First is the, wisdom of hearing, so or reading. You hear or read about something for the first time, something that you're ignorant of, and then that ignorance, like the first time you heard about past and future lives, or the first time you heard about karma, or all these different Dharma subjects that you didn't know before. And now you know that there's something, you don't know what it is, but you know there's something like this exists. So then you might think, oh, it doesn't sound, I never heard that before, it's probably wrong, because I didn't know it. We sometimes think like that. So you have to then you have to decide, is it true or not? So analytical meditation is when we analyze, we've been to a teaching on a topic that we're not very familiar with, we hear all these strange concepts, these different ideas that we don't really know much about. Our natural tendency may be to dismiss them because it sounds a little far-fetched, or, if this was true, surely I would have studied at university, or, my parents would have told me, or something, So then we have to analyze the topic to see if it makes sense, if it's internally logically consistent, if it accords with our experience. So you look at it from different points of view and try to come to a conclusion. So that is the wisdom of contemplation. And then if you arrive at a conclusion, then definitely by analysing the nature of the mind from different points of view, and from observing the mind itself, and from thinking about if the mind, what are the consequences of the mind not being continuous, what are the consequences of the mind just existing in this life, or what are the consequences of the mind being beginningless and endless, so the consequence of mental continuity. So if you come to the conclusion, yes, the mind definitely will continue after death. The mind definitely existed before I was born, my mind. So we come to that conclusion intellectually, but when we look in our heart, we don't really believe it. But we're not going to act as if that's the reality. We're still going to act as if there's only one life. So then we have to analyze that concept and come to the right conclusion. And then when we arrive at the conclusion, then with our single-pointed concentration that we've developed in other meditation sessions, meditating on the breath or developing concentration in various ways, then we focus on that right conclusion single-pointedly for as long as we can, until gradually we become more and more familiar with that being the reality. And the Tibetan word for meditation is gone. It means making your mind familiar with the object of meditation. So eventually, that correct understanding displaces the incorrect understanding that we've always had. And that little piece of wisdom is ours to keep. Then we move on to the next one. And there are, hundreds or thousands of them. So now, I was talking before when we were at the beginning in a perfect human rebirth. Very simple meditation. One of the first ones in the Lam Rim, right? Right there at the beginning. There was, I think it was the 5th meditation course at Kopan in the fall of 1973. There were about 200 people there. Big tent at the back of the Gompa. There were too many people for the Gompa that time. The old Gompa. Anyone been to Kopan? Yeah? When?
99.
So they just built the new Gompa then, haven't they? The big one? You were down the back in the old Chinese Gompa?
Yeah, I don't remember it being very big.
No, the one down the back was not that big. The new one they built was huge. But the one down the back, they call the Chinese Gompa, that was bigger than the original Gompa, the first one where we were in the 70s and 80s. So Lama Rinpoche looked around this crowd of 200 hippies and other assorted hangers-on, and he said, if one person in this tent, or in this big tent, if one person realizes the perfect human rebirth in this lifetime, that'll be an amazing thing. It's a little depressing if you think about it. 200 people, more or less serious Dharma students, very simple meditation, perfect human rebirth. One person, I don't know if anyone did, if anyone has. It certainly wasn't me. But still, that's how we get to enlightenment, realization by realization. So, so realization is meditating on the Lam Rim. I won't belabor this point, I always say this, but attaining realizations is like planting seeds in the ground. So the seed's the most important thing. Without the seed, nothing's going to happen. But if the ground isn't properly prepared, the seed won't grow. It's not going to grow on the table here. So the ground has to be, all the rocks and broken glass and other roots and stuff has to be taken out, and then it has to be made very smooth and has to be dug up and then fertilized and watered and needs sunshine. So that's like purifying and enriching the mind. There's different practices we do, like the 7 limb practice we did before, which 7 limb practice, prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, beseeching, dedicating. That contains the essence of purification and creating merit. So often at our stage, it's more important to focus on purifying the mind. And in fact, the very first retreat Lama Yeshe used to give us was the Vajrasattva, 3-month Vajrasattva purification retreat. To start clearing obstacles from the mind so that when we do plant the seeds, they'll grow unhindered. So a Lama is someone who's spiritually qualified, not just qualified with sort of book learning like a Geshe. So a Lama can be a Geshe, or can be a monk, or can be a lay person, can be anybody who's somebody's guru, somebody's teacher. So a Lama kind of has to have at least one disciple, I guess, to be a Lama. You know? But it's a huge responsibility, being a Lama, being a guru, you know? And it's also a big responsibility being a disciple, creating that, making that connection, the Dharma connection. There's an amazing book by Lama Zopa Rinpoche called The Heart of the Path, 400 or 500 pages, all about guru-disciple relationship. I don't know if you've had it in the bookstore or not, in the library. So if you read that book, you understand the responsibility of the guru, the Lama, and the responsibility of the disciple. And if both act responsibly, that things can happen for the disciple. You know? So the most important search in our life, really, is, of course, find the Dharma, but even more important in a way is to find the teacher, to find the Lama, find the Guru, someone who will guide us on the path, because we can't do it by ourselves. And then once you find the Guru and you make and you establish a Dharma connection, then it's extremely important not to break that connection, or not to damage the relationship in any way, because it's a very rare thing and it's a very precious thing, and it's the heart of the path, as it's called, it's the heart of the path. Well, the root of the path to enlightenment is finding the teacher, the right teacher. So that's the Lama. So then there are Rinpoches. Rinpoche or Tulku, you know. So Tulku and Rinpoche is basically the same thing. Rinpoche literally means precious one, and Tulku is the Tibetan word for Sanskrit no manakar, which is actually means the manifestation body of the Buddha. But it's often, you know, incarnate lamas are called Tulkus. I don't know if it really means they're a Buddha. Some lamas call themselves so-and-so Tulku Rinpoche, which I think is gilding the lily, but maybe a reason. So the most important time of life is death. Strange as that may sound. But it's like, you know, the most important time of your university course is your final exam. I mean, that, and of course, you had to have done all the preparation on that if you want to pass that exam. So it's the same thing with death, you know. If you want to pass death with flying colours, you know, summa cum laude, or what's the highest? Yeah. It's such an American thing. What's magna cum laude? Middle. And what's like ordinary? Just kum? Kum.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's with honours? An honours degree?
It's cum. Cum laude.
Cum laude.
Cum laude is with honors.
Oh, I see. And then magna cum laude is?
High honors.
And
And then summa is highest.
highest honours.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if we have that. So if you want to graduate from this life, summa cum laude, you need to really put in the work. It starts now, you know, because you never know when the thing with the university exam is you know when it's going to be. With death, you've got no idea. So you have to be ready any day, any moment. You know, one of our young Dharma friends, 37, just was killed in California in a car accident, you know. Everyone's so shocked, you know. And, you know, you can understand that, but it can happen. It does happen. Did happen. So the great practitioners, the yogis, you know, the meditators, the raw meditators, the raw practitioners, they're practicing to handle death, kind of fully conscious. So, you know, I think many of you have had teachings on the death process, you know, different things. So the different stages of death that happen, the 8 different stages and the 25 things and all that. So, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama said that he meditates on the death process, I think he said 8 times a day, because it's part of his highest tantric sadhanas. So if he's practicing 8 sadhanas a day, he's doing this meditation 8 times a day. So it's kind of rehearsing for death. So because the moment that the mind separates from the body, it's called the clear light of death. So that's when our mind is at its most subtle level, or you can say the clearest level, and that's what the yogis are waiting for. As the death process evolves, that mind arises, and because they have such great concentration, as soon as it arises they can hold it, and they can use that mind to meditate on emptiness. And with that mind meditating on emptiness, ultimate reality, it's much easier to realize it. So if you can, so, you know, and so that's when the Lama's passing away, so he's in his meditation. So they leave the Lamas, they're sitting or maybe they're lying, you know, and some can remain in their body meditating on the clear light for days, even weeks. So at that time, many Lamas are waiting for a suitable body into which they can project their consciousness and take intentional rebirth in order to continue the work they were doing in this life. So someone who's that highly accomplished and who, out of compassion for other sentient beings, doesn't want to float off into some pure land or some other sort of incommunicable place, but who really wants to come back and help others, or maybe continue working with his own disciples from previous life and all that, you know. Someone who, out of compassion, purposely comes back into this mess, into, you know, a suffering human body with all its issues. He doesn't have to, but voluntarily comes back. He's considered precious. So that accomplished practitioner is a Rinpoche or a Tulku, you know, But Lama Yeshua used to say, I'm a skeptic, you know. Just because somebody's called a Rinpoche, I don't necessarily believe, because people can make mistakes, you know. So I don't necessarily believe, I don't automatically assume that they really are a Rinpoche, you know. I watch to see how they lead their life and how they behave. And then I'll make my judgment, you know. That's what he used to say. I don't know if we can judge like Lama Yeshe did, but that's what he said. So some Rinpoches are recognised, like, you know, Ling Rinpoche, who's coming here. He was recognised as incarnation of the previous Ling Rinpoche when he was reborn in Dharamsala, I think in 85, was it? No, 85, I think. His previous life passed away in 83 or 84, 83, I think. Well, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you know, he was recognised as the incarnation of Lado Lama when he was 2 or 3 by, you know, when he was little. He was born in a village down from Lado Lama. His previous life spent the last 20 more years meditating in a cave up on the mountain in this place called Lado in the Himalayas in Nepal, near Namche Bazaar. Namche Bazaar is the town you go to when you go to Everest. And if you go in the other direction, you go west, you come to Lado. So he was born in a village called Tangme down at the bottom of the mountain. So when he was little, he kept running away from home. They kept dragging him back. And finally, when he could talk, said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to my cave." So then they got there, oh, maybe, you know. But his family was, his mother and his family were a little humble to assume that he could possibly be, that they could possibly have this Lama as their child. But anyway, someone brought some of the previous Lado Lama's possessions and he recognised them, and then His Holiness Trisha Rinpoche confirmed that's who he was. So he was a Rinpoche, Lado Rinpoche, Lado Lama. Sometimes the Rinpoches, especially in Sherpa culture, I think they're called Lamas, you know. But of course, Lama is also a surname for Sherpa families. So someone's called, you know, Pasang Lama doesn't mean anything. Can mean his father was, you know, Tsering Lama or something, you know. So, be vigilant. Look beyond the words. But then sometimes, you know, when someone's been an abbot, so an abbot is a Khenpo, so when you're an abbot, you become Khen Rinpoche, you know, precious abbot. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're incarnate Lama. Or, you know, sometimes Geshe, who's had a lot of students, and they will call him Geshe Rinpoche. Not necessarily because we're all incarnations, obviously, but we're not all incarnate Lamas. We didn't take this human rebirth intentionally to benefit sentient beings. You know, with full control. So Khen Rinpoche means precious abbot. Khen Sur Rinpoche, you see Khen, K-H-E-N-S-U-R, means precious former abbot. Sur means the former. So you see there's lots of Khen Sur Rinpoches, former abbots. So I call them Rinpoche, but that just doesn't necessarily mean they're incarnate Lamas. So I was supposed to also talk about the qualities of these Lamas who are coming to visit us. And the first one is Khen Rinpoche. He's the abbot of Sera Monastery. He's been here before. Were you here when was it? 2 years.
Almost exactly 2 years.
Yeah. So the previous abbot also came. The previous one was Geshe-la's main teacher, was Palden. Not Geshe-la Palden, yeah. He came. Geshe-la was here then too, I think. Were you here when he came?
I was not here when Geshe-la Palden came here.
Yeah, he came here. I think it was 2009, 2010. So, you know, it's abbot of one of the main monasteries of Tibet. It's kind of a big deal, you know. So, and it's not easy to become that. So I think if someone like that visits the centre, it's an incredible opportunity that we have to sit right here in front of him and receive teachings. You know, most Tibetans even couldn't do that, you know, especially in Tibet. You know, the abbots were in some high room in some remote monastery. You didn't see them very much. You know. So I don't think I need to go through his biography. You can read that yourself. It's on the website. But like the other Tibetans, he was one of the Lamas who came from Tibet. So they're obviously getting fewer and fewer. So it's also special to meet and study with some of those Lamas who did come from Tibet. And he also was in Buxa, it says East Bengal, but actually it's West Bengal. So in 65 he took full ordination. So he was at Serja as a novice monk, and then he took full ordination in 65 with His Holiness, and then he moved to South India to clear the jungle and build the monastery that's there now. Has anyone been to Sera in South India? You have. Anybody else? Me either. Yeah, I know. Lived in India for all those years. I never went to South India. Anyway, if you see those monasteries now, they're like towns, you know, and it was jungle, and the monks cleared most of it themselves. And then they had to grow crops, and then they had to ward off the elephants, and it was like, and we just got to sit here. So, Khen Rinpoche graduated, became a Geshe in 87 at the highest rank, La Rampa, and he went, and often a lot of the Geshes, when they finish in the monastery, they go to the Tantric college for a couple of years, to study ritual and different aspects of Vajrayana. So you'll really study the perfect human rebirth. There are 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses. Everybody knows what they are, right? All right, we need to know. Lama Zopa's book, Perfect Human Rebirth. It's a whole book about it. So the 10 richnesses, we've actually had a couple for us. One is, well, not only do we have those standard 10, being born human and, being the second one is actually being born in the centre of a religious country, or a place where there's Dharma. And that's defined, we kind of might think that's India or something, but actually it's a place where the lineage of the ordination exists, so where we can become ordained. So America is like a religious country from this point of view, in that we can take ordination if we want to, in this country, as a monk or a nun. So that's possible. So we have that, and perfect organs, and we haven't created the 5 extreme negative actions, and we have faith in 3 baskets of teachings, the Abhidharma, Sutra, Vinaya. We're born at a time when the Buddha exists, in a place, and there are teachings available, living teachings available, and people are following the teachings, and we can receive help of kind gurus and benefactors and so on. Those 10. But on top of that, also we're living in a time when there are tantric teachings, Vajrayana, which allows us to reach enlightenment even in a single lifetime, which probably most of us, to be honest, aren't going to do. But the possibility is there, or in 7 lifetimes or in 16 lifetimes, by studying, by taking initiations, by practicing Tantra, and so on, and taking tantric vows, and receiving commentaries, and then doing tantric retreats. So the quick path to enlightenment, so we can help sentient beings more quickly. Of course, that's where it has to come from, the compassion. So we're sort of towards the beginning of what's called a fortunate eon, where 1,000 Buddhas will manifest. So Guru Shakyamuni Buddha is the 4th. Maitreya Buddha, where is he? Out there somewhere. Is the 5th.
No, he moved to the bookstore.
Maitreya's in the bookstore, okay. He loves to read. So Maitreya Buddha is going to be the next one, these founding Buddhas. So he's the 5th. So there are 1,000. So out of these 1,000 Buddhas, only 3 teach Tantra. First, Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, and the last. So Maitreya it's not because they don't know, it's because the karma of the sentient beings isn't up to snuff. So, strangely enough, our karma is up to snuff. The Buddha Shakyamuni were born in the time of the Buddha who teaches Tantra. So that is like, so if these lamas are giving initiations or tantric commentaries and so on, we should really take the opportunity to make a connection and get those imprints, because it's much rarer than the Dharma itself. Tantra. So that's like the 11th richness. And the 12th, I would say, is actually meeting your guru, because it doesn't really specify exactly in those, but to meet someone in whom you don't have a shadow of doubt that this is my teacher, and you can wholeheartedly put your spiritual life in that person's hands without the slightest worry. That's like an amazing blessing, A lot of people finish up following, fake teachers, to put it bluntly. And it doesn't just ruin this life, it ruins countless future lives. So with these lamas who are coming, like Khen Rinpoche, or Ling Rinpoche, or Pari Rinpoche, Dagri Rinpoche, we always used to call him Pari Rinpoche. Yeah. He came out, I'm not sure when he came out of Tibet, does it say in the 80s? And Lama Yeshe took some responsibility for looking after him at Sarah. I think Lama Yeshe was his sponsor when he first came out. Anyway, these are like 100% trustworthy lamas, So when they give even the Kriya initiations, Tara or Medicine Buddha, we should really not be scared, we should really want to make that imprint. I mean, the Son Rinpoche, one of the great lamas who came from Tibet. One of the great lamas. Now his incarnation is in his 30s, I think, Son Rinpoche. He's at Ganden Shatsi, Ganden Monastery. He was one of our main teachers, one of Lama Geshe Lama Zopa Rinpoche's main teachers. Also passed away in 84. He used to give a lot of initiations and highest yoga tantra and teachings, and one of the students said to him, I'd like to take the initiation, one of the Western students, I'd like to take the initiation, but I'm worried that if I take the initiation I don't keep the commitments. I mean, there are a lot of commitment. Some initiations have more commitments than others. Highest yoga tantra has more commitments. He said, I'm worried if I take the initiation I don't keep the commitments, I'll be reborn in hell. He said, you're going to be reborn in hell anyway, so you may as well go for a good reason. Okay. He took the initiation. So like that. So, all these lamas, they've undergone a lot of hardship, losing their country and going to exile and being in India and then doing all these hard, rigorous studies and practice, and especially the incarnate lamas, they didn't have to come back, like these Rinpoche, Ling Rinpoche and Dagri Rinpoche, they could have had a much easier life than hanging out with us. But out of compassion, they put us first. So given that, I think we really need to take the opportunity to make the connection and study with them. I don't know, I'm sure Sean wanted me to say other things, but I think that's about the extent of my very limited knowledge. So that's all, folks. One question? It means object of refuge. Kyabdo is Tibetan word for refuge. Kyabje means venerable refuge. J, something like that, venerable refuge.
Sometimes you see that before.
Yeah, that's sort of one way for title. Good question. It's Kyabje Ling Rinpoche, Kyabje Trishik Rinpoche used to call them, His Holiness's tutors. Lama Lungdup, the late abbot of Kopan Monastery, was the one who said, you guys should really be calling Lama Zopa Rinpoche Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So he was the one who encouraged us to add Kyabje to Lama Zopa Rinpoche's name. So it's something that someone recognised the qualities of the Lama over time, his incredible compassion and his amazing beneficial work. And so I think it comes like that.
The reincarnation of the Lama seems to often be in Tibet or in India. I mean,
Well, that usually was incarnated in Spain.
Yes, but it is going to be more frequent because, the ones I know...
You asked me to do it.
Because the reason I came up with this lady, this guy goes to the monastery.
Well, I mean, the thing is, when she was the founder, was going to make you run completely with our education, basically. So that's where the opportunities are. It's like Willie Sutton, the bank robber.
I don't know.
Willie Sutton? Everyone heard of Willie Sutton? Really? People Americans? It's a famous American bank robber. He kept robbing banks and getting caught and put in jail, escaping and robbing banks and getting caught and put in jail. And they said, really? Why do you keep robbing banks? He said, that's where the money is. So that's why they incarnate where the Dharma is, I guess. But, you know, I mean, Lama Yeshe incarnated to a couple of his students in Spain. There's a video of him, Lama Yeshe, talking to them about a year before he died. And he was looking at them and he's saying, you know, I really like it here. I think I'm going to come and stay with you for a long time. And that was like, he never stayed anywhere for a long time. So that was kind of, I mean, you know, make of it what you will. But, okay, I think that's it. So, just do a short dedication prayer.
So turn to page 50. We'll do the long life prayers and then we'll do and the backup. So if we can go to page
Oh,
43.
I did forget to say, today is His Holiness' birthday. And we were supposed to do a meditation on compassion and recitation of money. So everybody knows our Mani Padme Hum? So please do a few marbles of that on your way home. Get me off the hook. Thank you. That's your commitment.
Page 43 is the, we'll start with the short long life prayer for His Holiness. Did I switch it on? Yes. In that snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzing Gyatso Chen Rizik remain in life till samsara's end. Dong Ni Ning Je Zung Du Ju Pe Lam Che Che Sal Te Gan Chen Ten Droi Gun Chak Na Pe Mo Ten Zen Gyatso La So I Dev So Je Dun Lun Rup Sho. Page 49, short long life prayer for Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Duk Tsul Chang Jing Jam Gun Gyao Wei Den Zin Kyom Hao Wei Kun Zo Dok Po Te Chok Sum Ku Wei Lek Mun Tu Dru Pa Dak Sok Tu Je Kun Du Jak Den Sho. Page 57, the bottom. Through this virtue may I swiftly, having gained Guru Buddha's state, place each and every sentient being without exception in that state. Precious Supreme Bodhi Mind, may it where unborn arise, and where born never decline, but increase forevermore. Bottom of page 75 for Miktama. Big Mete with the Chen raising, dreaming Yambe Wampo Jambel Dang Chen Kepe Tsuyan Song Kapa Lobsang Rabe Jabla Sowade. Thank you, Nick.
So seriously, definitely come to see these lamas, and also if you can help others by helping publicise the visits or volunteering for the centre or contributing to the expenses, it's good for you and good for everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, thanks very much, Nick. And just one more thing, you'll see an announcement. Geshe-la won't be teaching awareness and OS next week. There's a teacher, Chinese Lama coming here, and he'll be hosted here. It's not, he's not going to teach here in English, so it's for the Chinese community. We will need some volunteers to just do some welcoming, so some information will be sent out around that. And then also, when Khen Rinpoche Lobsang Delek is here, he's here for 10 days. There's an opportunity to help Kimber with the breakfasts. And that email went out today, so you can just email volunteers@kurukulla.org and then sign up and pick one of the dates. And I think it's an hour, right, Kimber? Something like 2 hours. And will be much appreciated. And is there anything else? I've been sort of, no, I think that's it. If anyone have any questions, and at the end of class, we need to take the water bowls down and clean up. So if you can help with that, and the board have the little cards on it, so you can pick something off the board, 5 minutes, clean the tea station or something like that. Thanks everyone, thanks so much, Nick.